welcome to What's Wrong with the Podcast. Today we're happy to be speaking with İlkay Baliç. Baliç is the Director of Communications at Arter in Istanbul. Following her education in Saint Pulcheri and Notre Dame de Sion, İlkay Baliç graduated with a degree in Urban and Regional Planning from Yıldız Technical University and a master's in Sociology from Boğaziçi University, and completed the NGO Management Program of Istanbul Big University. Her connection with Arter started in 2009. From this year onwards, Baliç has edited the exhibition publications and worked on the communications and mediation contents of the institution, while also contributing to the publications with her writings. In 2013, together with İzostat, she conceived the spatial setup and program of Bahane, the shared space that remained open on the second floor of Arter's building on İstiklal Street for 2 months. Since 2015, she has been serving as Director of Communications and Editor-in-Chief for Arter. İlkay, welcome.
Hello, Pinar.
Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be a guest.
So please tell us about yourself and how you came to the position you're at Arter today.
Yeah, so I studied urban planning and sociology, and I initially intended to work either in the academia or in the non-public sector. In an NGO, and somehow my paths crossed with contemporary art and cultural institutions. First as an editor, mostly. I worked for the Istanbul Biennial and Istanbul Foundation for Culture and Arts as an editor of publications, then content in general, and then more in the field of communications in general. At Arter, I started in 2010 when Arter was founded by the Vehbi Koç Foundation, which is a family trust owned by the Koç family. Koç is one of the biggest companies in Turkey, active in many industries. And the Vehbi Koç Foundation is an operating foundation in the areas of healthcare, education, and culture and arts. Arter was the brainchild of course, Ömer Koç and our founding director, Melih Ferili, who was invited as an advisor for the foundation and the Koç Group back in 2005. And he came up with a strategic plan and put forward the end results as a sustainable cultural institution active in various fields of contemporary art and life. And now I'm talking with you from the actually the end product of that strategic plan from Dolapdere, our new building designed by Grimshaw Architects. But prior to this venue, we were in our venue on İstiklal Street, which is Istanbul's main pedestrian avenue for mostly focusing on culture and arts. It has been going through a huge, of course, transformation for the past 10, 15 years. I don't know how to name it, but as Arter, we were active there for 8 years in a historical building. We made there 35 exhibitions and publications that accompany each exhibition, both in Turkish and English. And for the first 5 years, I was the editor of publications and content, and I was mostly involved in the publications part of the operation, but also in the development of content and promotional material around the program. And then in 2015, which also was the year where we started to construct this building, the new building, I started as a full-time staff as a director of communications. I am still responsible of the publications, but as editor-in-chief, we have a brilliant team now who takes care of Arter's publications, media marketing, and our membership program, as well as learning. So actually, as we have been moving to this, preparing for this move to a new neighborhood, to a new building, we had the chance as a team to work together towards this ultimate goal. And I was lucky to be able to witness all the steps that led us to this final step. And actually, it's also a pleasure to be here to observe to understand and to from our mistakes and develop new strategies as we go into this experience here.
Yeah, and I'm sure it really helps you have like grown with them and sort of like have the
Yeah,
opportunity to oversee like what has
every
changed.
day, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. And I think what I find really interesting is that also the new location. For anyone
Mm.
who's listening and who's not familiar with Dolapdere Istanbul, it's probably I don't even know how to describe it when comparing to New York, but it's a blended neighborhood, let's say. You can find
Mm.
like industrial manufacturers to residents to retail to new developments. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
everything. So in that sense, I actually find it similar to New York in some ways. So why do you think that was a destination for Arter, and how do you think that also contributes sort of to the identity of what Arter is?
Yeah, actually, as most decision-making processes, it was a complicated one. Arter's new building, the intention was to locate it next to the city center, not to go really far away from the center. The Vehbi Koç Foundation started a research for a new location, and it turned out there weren't big enough land areas near the city center to build a new museum building. So they targeted this old industrial building, not very old one. Actually, it was built in the 60s, as far as I remember. It was an automobile like service building owned by the Koç Auto Koç, which is an automobile company, again from the Koç group. So that building was going to be demolished anyway due to the new earthquake regulations. That land was really interesting, and it turned out it was close to the city center, and in many ways it was in terms of scale as well, because Artar's new building is not like it's like a mid-sized cultural institutions, let's say, not a very large-scale building. Our new building, it's a 14-story one. We have 7 floors above ground and 7 floors below ground, with storage and service areas below ground, and gallery spaces mostly above ground, offices, and also with 2 performance halls where we are able to incorporate other disciplines: music, performance, film, dance, opera, even, whichever you name. So it is more, it gave us the chance to become more of an interdisciplinary meeting point, an art center, a cultural center, so to say. We decided to refrain from defining a category for ourselves. We have an international contemporary art collection focusing on Turkey and the neighboring geographies, but also around the dialogues between the art produced in Turkey and elsewhere since the 1960s. So the building obviously hosts the collection and collection-based exhibitions, as well as exhibitions solely featuring new productions of young and old generations alike. And also a performance program, a new music festival, and a film program, and also, of course, learning events, but we'll get to those maybe later after your next question.
Yeah, I love how blended it is and actually interdisciplinary it is. I think that's very appropriate for a city like Istanbul, which is sort of like the home of various cultures and various things. So in that sense, I actually really find it, not naming or tagging yourselves very appropriate in that way. So I guess, yeah, let's talk about the obvious question, right? So we have been going through a global pandemic. And I think one of the areas that it hit hardest was, well, maybe one, entertainment, and then second, anything arts and culture. And we've seen that, we're still seeing that in New York City. And I think it has been a huge problem for any super dense cities like Istanbul or New York City. And I think that sort of was maybe a never before seen situation for so many arts and cultural institutions, at least in our living memory, right? Like, I'm sure there were, some pandemics before, but it was totally a different era that we had to deal with. So what did you see? I guess, like, what was the initial reaction you saw from the space, not only Artar, but like the art space? Like, what was, it seemed like a crisis in the beginning, and then we started to see all these like new innovative ways where institutions started to open up themselves. So can you talk about that process a little bit to us?
Yeah, sure. Of course, let's maybe call it a sector, arts and culture has been hit hard, of course, due to the pandemic, but maybe not as hard as health, education, tourism, and also, as you mentioned, entertainment and live music, live performance in general. As cultural institutions, as museums, of course, we had to think and rethink more in depth about our why we exist and what is our mission and how to keep that mission alive during that sort of like unusual new times, which resists to become a new normal, but will surely become the new normal nowadays, I guess, because we see that it will go on this way for maybe a year or longer. And also the economic part of it has been hard, but it will become harder. It's also visible. We were actually, we have been discussing about our programming, having discussions around our programming, and also the human resources and staff part of it since the beginning. We were one of the luckiest institutions in Turkey and globally, as our founder and the Vehbi Koç Foundation has been backing us up about everything. Of course, we had to make budget cuts and reconsider everything in our programming, but we were able to protect our staff, and we were even able to protect our contracted stuff, exhibition attendants and exhibition guides, and also pay their salaries as well. So it was really, I felt privileged to be able to manage, lead a team with such in a comfort zone in that sense. I don't know how the future will be for us, but we are really, in terms of programming, reconsidering the ways in which we can interact with our public, because our style of exhibitions is really like it engages so much with the space itself, with many installations and spatial sound works, for instance. So all these works were not like, let's like all transform them into digital exhibitions. We didn't do that. We refrained from doing that, and we instead focused on how to use our collection for more exhibitions created for the digital, or how to develop new formats. For instance, our learning team has developed online exhibition tours, guided tours, while in which our guides share their screen and go through works in a thematic manner. And also our learning team has developed, I think, a brilliant new format called Show and Tell from Home. Because, at home, in our homes, we all initially became positioned ourselves as consumers of what cultural institutions or TVs had to offer from their screens. But we also yearned for still being producers ourselves, like be it sourdough bread, or like little things, plays, or like I don't know, games with our children, or even painting, or doing small stuff like gardening or planting things. So what did we have to tell from our homes? And it was really great to see people share their ideas, their interpretations about an artwork or a photograph, or just a little object from their own, the privacy of their home. So I guess we prioritized interaction among the members of our team, as well as with our public. We didn't do much online events otherwise. But now, for the coming season, we opened new exhibitions, and our learning program will take place exclusively online. We won't hold any workshops or learning interpretation events within the space.
I see.
That's more or less how it is. But also, of course, we have an events program, a live events program, and whose manager has suffered more from this pandemic situation. We are really unable to host any concerts or performances, and we had to postpone everything, of course. We are still lucky, and we are happy to be able to share our new exhibitions with our audiences. But of course, we all need new ways of maybe helping each other and engaging in more like solidarity and in collaborative projects maybe. And we are in constant dialogue with other cultural institutions, art institutions as well. So yeah.
I actually, it's really interesting what the learning division came up with, because I think like one thing that we've all observed, seeing art institutions sort of turning into, okay, like we have virtual tours. But there's, to your point, what you said about space and interaction, like that's actually a huge element of experiencing art. And without even maybe, I mean, yes, like if you go into a grand building and it looks amazing and then you're seeing the artwork, maybe there's like a feel or psychological component to it. But even like out of that too, just being around people who are experiencing that art, like that experience on its own is very unique. And yes, everything technically can go to digital at a certain level, but we're also social beings, right? Like,
Exactly,
so it's not,
yeah, exactly,
we're not, you know, experiencing arts and culture, like that's sort of part of our social existence as well. So I think what you guys created in terms of the show and tell, that sort of adds to the social component too. At least there's like communication and interaction involved, however form you can while you're from home. And seeing some, you know, like creative works by like other institutions as well. I think another great example I've witnessed throughout the pandemic was Istanbul Toy Museum did great campaigns throughout the pandemic. And so like seeing these like creative ways popping up, I think that's just like one silver lining of this entire, you know, chaos, because even though, you know, maybe we're not going to have a pandemic in the, hopefully, the near future, and maybe this is going to be a conversation of yesterday, but still throughout every struggle, like something is innovated, and possibly that something is also maybe giving more access to arts where it couldn't. Like maybe some people can't go to the space, maybe there's an access issue. So in terms of like inclusion and actually creating more awareness around arts and why it's important, and around local artists, like all of that, I think being on digital is like complementary to that. So it sort of pushed all the institutions to sort of like, okay, we need to innovate that space, like virtual tours are not enough. So to enable that push, like it's good that it happened, but the way it happened was bad. But actually seeing these like really creative campaigns coming up to sort of also, and I would love to get your opinion on this too, making art accessible not only in terms of physical aspect, but psychological aspect too, because there's I'm not even sure how to describe it. There's like this invisible wall somehow, even though many museums and art institutions are public, between some of the communities of a city and the art space, right? It's sort of this like, there's this delusion of that's created for a certain community or society, and then it's only catered for like certain people. So what are your thoughts around how being also digital sort of enabled that, or can enable, maybe we're not there yet because it just started, but can enable that removal of, you know, barriers to entry to the art space, or being more aware or educated about art?
Yeah, I think I have nothing against virtual tours. Let me first state that. And I think like I would visit the Louvre in a virtual tour. And I also love the fact that we have become more experienced in that field too. For instance, documenting our exhibitions in 3D cameras hasn't been a priority for us. We were going to do that, but now it has become a priority for us too. Even though we don't share it with the public immediately, we document them in like, we are more conscious and aware about documenting them in a 3D fashion. And also, I think in terms of the democratization of arts and access to culture in general, the virtual tours and digital tours and other digital tools are very, very important in terms of wider audiences around the world getting access to artistic production, especially in terms of more classical art. Like I love what they are doing at Google Arts and Culture. We also opened an exhibition on Altan Gürman's work. He's a Turkish artist who died very early when he was 41, my age. And his work we are currently and still hosting a retrospective of his work. And we also hold his archive, for which we have collaborated with SALT, and they have processed the archive digitally and opened it for access. So Arter hasn't been a very like digital institution in that sense. We have been a more physical space, really, and we intend to keep doing so, because I think institutions also complement each other. We are not rivals in the area of digital.
Definitely.
But we try to understand what each other do, and try to, if SALT has great digital archives and great experience in digitalizing archives and making them accessible. So I think it's great that we are able to collaborate on that. And also I believe that at Altar, one of our ambitions really has been to position viewers, audiences as users, as participants, as parts of what we do. This is also this also applies for our guided tours or exhibition materials we publish, and our audio guides contents. We try to make art more accessible, more like, not to simplify it in that sense, but to not to exaggerate the theoretical part of it, just to express it in normal terms, daily terms. And also to encourage audiences to engage with what they see, what they hear, what they experience through their own life experiences, because art is all about asking questions in that sense. When you see an artwork, you establish your own personal relationship with that artwork, and it's all yours and it's all legitimate. What you think about it is all legitimate. There is no one correct way of getting involved with an artwork, or there is no one single correct interpretation of an artwork. This is how we approach the thing. So that's what we also have tried to do online as well, like engaging people with artistic production and inviting them to be producers themselves.
I absolutely love that. And I think, that sort of mentality and sort of phrasing that too is so important to explain what we mean by access. Like, I think, some feels like there are misconceptions, or there are even some maybe people or institutions who sort of position themselves in that way on purpose. But I think like this, the field of architecture also suffers from this a little bit. Like, what we mean by access is not necessarily dumbing down the field, right? It's not dumbing down the profession. It's actually communicating it in a way where it can be heard by everyone. And I think, we see issues the more you distance yourself or create your own language, or, put yourself in your own ivory tower, the more the field and the sector actually starts to become more distanced from the society and almost sometimes irrelevant. And, losing the connection with the end user is the most risky thing that can happen to a space. So that's why we're so big on access ourselves too. And we really try to always emphasize that what we mean by access and what does that necessarily allow for the field itself, if that's done right. And I think it's beautiful to see how these like innovations in the digital space, and probably, this is just the beginning. I think having gone through such pandemic and seeing that, the experience of art should be a balance of digital and physical, it will be very exciting to see if we start to see art institutions and museums also further innovating in digital space, and seeing like coming up with even more creative things for people to experience art and access art.
Yeah, about this balance between physical and digital. This pandemic, this crisis, this current crisis that we are facing at this very moment, has forced us to stay at home and focus on the digital. But we really don't know whether the next crisis that we will face as humanity and planet won't happen in the digital space. So yeah, of course, awareness around the digital is very important. Let's learn what we can learn from this crisis, but let's also be more aware of what this planet has been going through, and let's become also more relevant institutions in terms of getting more involved maybe in crucial questions and urgent questions of our times. Yeah, the emphasis on the digital realm is very important, but it's not the most important thing at the moment.
I mean, I can't agree more. I think it's more the question is that how do we become sustainable? How do we become responsive and adaptive, really, right? Like there can be another crisis tomorrow.
Totally,
and how are you
totally,
adaptive to that and respond to that? Like, it's, our built environment did fail us during a pandemic because we didn't prep for that, nor we did think about public health while we're building buildings. So this is a big question for many industries to sort of go back at themselves and what they've done in the past and how they can change to create more sort of future-proof systems that could respond to many sort of different crises. This won't be the last pandemic for sure. It looks like, but also we might have like a digital crisis.
Yeah.
Who knows what's that's going to be. So how do you sort of prepare for that and create a responsive model? I think is the bigger question. And I really hope what will happen after this is that this pandemic will allow for institutions to ask those questions. So it's not just about COVID-19. It's actually about like, how can we create a better version of ourselves? Which is going to tie to what I was going to ask as a follow-up question. Have you seen, so when we interview everyone from different fields, and typically when we're discussing what are like potential solutions to a problem or how can we make progress in the field, it always in some way, shape, or form lands on collaboration, and mostly interdisciplinary, diverse collaborations to really be able to address an issue. Have you seen sort of this pandemic sort of pushing or enabling people even be more open-minded about collaborating in the space? And how do you see, more further collaborations happening to sort of, I guess, grow together and sort of learn from all of this together?
Yeah, exactly. I think, yes, there has been many collaborative efforts among art institutions and in entertainment industry in Turkey, and collaboration, cooperation, and solidarity among artists. New groups have been forming, and many projects and funding mechanisms are getting invented. So I think that's a very important part that needs to be supported and developed more in the near future, of course.
Great to hear that. So I guess to sort of slowly wrap up our conversation, I want to touch upon what we always ask our interviewees. What do you have as an advice for anyone who's going into a space that they're passionate about, who wants to make progress in a field, who wants to push boundaries or solve problems? It's not easy. We all know that. And clearly you can also go through things that are totally unanticipated, like a pandemic. But what would be your advice, or what is something that you wish you had heard from someone when you were younger?
Yeah, be yourself, and do not think that your contribution wouldn't make a difference, because everyone can make a difference. And just dare to act on what your heart wants to, like the path your heart really wants to follow, and focus on one thing. Don't postpone, don't procrastinate, just work really hard for just only one thing. I have been very like unfocused myself in my life. I had many areas of interest, but I always see the benefits of focusing and working through one goal, like focusing on one goal and like following through.
Yeah, I love that advice. I actually did get an advice when I was younger, early on, from a mentor who said, people don't die fast from starvation, they die from indigestion, which, was led to my also like sort of being focused on many different things.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
really hear that and would like to echo that advice too. So
yeah,
what
yeah.
what is something that we should be on the watch for about Artar? Anything new coming up that we should be following? Anything that you want to highlight?
Yeah,
Give a tease. Give a tease.
At Artar, please do follow us on social media. You'll see many Zoom links nowadays to our online events, both in Turkish and in English, and also some of them are getting translated into both languages simultaneously. And please do follow our YouTube account, where we publish the documentation of previous events with subtitles. That's an area we've been also focusing on due to the pandemic. We had time to reopen some unfinished project files. And also, as the coach group has been, as you said, better versions of ourselves, they created this slogan, this motto for the just at the beginning of the pandemic, which was "İyileşeceğiz" in Turkish. We will get better. And I love that really slogan, that we will get better in terms of health, and we will get better people, and we will become better institutions. Let's just do that. Let's just become better institutions. And I'm also hopeful about, there was this green event concept that was released last week by the coach group. They prepared, the corporate communications team has prepared a new guidelines dossier about how to host a more green and sustainable event. And it includes many like new rules and regulations, and also these guidelines includes points around waste, sustainability, what to what to serve as food, and many aspects have been considered and included in those guidelines. And I'm really happy to be able to process these and incorporate these like basic rules of living our lives into both our personal lives and the lives of our institutions as well. So let's try to become better people, better institutions. Let's try to learn from this COVID virus in that
Well
sense.
said. It makes me really happy to hear that, with such principles, Artar is sort of being a role model to other museums and institutions in Istanbul and hopefully throughout Turkey. It's really great to hear that. And also a huge shout out to the institution for, taking care of their staff and team during such a hard time. We know, we heard in, I think United States, there were a lot of budget cuts also, as all museums, and, the most, I think, layoffs happened in the educational department of museums, which is, I think, a total, wrong move to sort of like.
That's a big loss, really. I've been also, we've been following that, those developments from here, and we are really sorry to read that like education content departments are really will really suffer for the upcoming years, because when you lose that kind of experience, that's really a bigger loss than relatively small budgets. What I really think are really relatively small budgets.
I definitely agree.
We should really begin by the salaries of like CEOs and directors. If we really want to make cuts, I would begin by my own salary. So and also this is I think the approach that needs to be followed in terms of HR. And also, it's very important to create a good non-hostile working environment. We have been hearing those kind of hostile working, toxic working environment stories around, mostly from the US nowadays. And we all need to create more dialogue, more diverse and open to participation, multicultural working environments.
Yes, I agree. And thank you for saying that also on behalf of an art institution as well. And also agreeing that, cutting on education today actually has much higher costs in the future than is anticipated. So thank you for being a model in that too, on how to take care of the team. And thank you so much for joining today. It's really a great pleasure to feature someone from not only an art institution, but someone in also Istanbul, which is our other hometown. And it was lovely chatting with you.
It was lovely for me too. Thank you very much.
That is this week's episode of What's Wrong with the Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, podcast.what'swrongwith.xyz, and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. You can now also watch our podcast on YouTube and can find a link in the description below. If you find value in this show, we would appreciate if you could rate us and leave a review. And please tell your friends about us. For more details on our guests, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Links can be found in the episode description. Don't forget to join us next week. Thank you for listening.